Today, the Associated Press reports that the U.S. has deported more than 110 Chinese migrants this past weekend in coordination with Beijing on the first large charter flight in years, according to the Homeland Security Department. This amidst the release of a fascinating new book about the rise of China, the Communist Party, and what drove one Chinese immigrant decades ago to go to the U.S. As an immigrant. The story is told through the eyes of his son. And he joins me now, New York Times diplomatic correspondent Edward Wong, the former Beijing bureau chief for the Times, the author of At the Edge of Empire, A Family's Reckoning with China. And we've traveled together, and I never, until I read your book, learned your history. It is extraordinary. What a timely book. Also, with July 4th tomorrow, you retraced your father's journey. You were the bureau chief 2014, I think, and you started retracing his journey and discovering so much about his past with him and about his whole history under Mao Zedong.
That's right, Andrea. Part of the reason why I wanted to write this book, and I think, as you mentioned, it's timely right now on the eve of July 4th, is to tell stories of why people from these other countries might have chosen America as their homeland over their mother country. And in my dad's case, he had lived through the big momentous events of mid-20th century China. He saw the Japanese occupation. He saw the corruption of the nationalist government led by Chiang Kai-shek. And because of that, as soon as he graduated from high school in 1950, he decided to go north to Beijing and sign up for the revolution that Mao had undertaken. The communists had just taken over. And then my dad decided to join the military in order to try and fight the Americans on the Korean Peninsula during the Korean War because of the heated nationalist rhetoric that Mao and his compatriots were pushing. Many Chinese citizens felt they needed to do their part for the country. But his journey, his very long and dramatic journey, took him out to the northwest of China, the far northwest, where Uyghur Muslims and Kazakh Muslims live. He was part of the first military occupation of that region, and eventually he becomes disillusioned with the party and with Mao's policies and decides to flee to Hong Kong and then come to America.
And you see parallels between what your father learned about Mao Zedong and Xi Jinping. Explain.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're seeing evolving now in China under Xi has its roots in the Mao era. And one of the things that Mao and the party really pushed was the idea that there were many subversives within China and that foreign influences were out to weaken and eventually overthrow the Communist Party, these influences led by America. And right now you're seeing that type of rhetoric, that type of propaganda unfolding under Xi. He's pushing this idea of a national security state and that Chinese citizens have to be on the watch for subversive foreign powers that are seeking to undermine China. A lot of the nationalism that we see being pushed by Xi now has its roots in the Mao era propaganda and in Mao's pushing of this anti-American imperialist framing of China and its place in the world. So I think we're seeing that play out again. China goes through these cycles of history. And we're also seeing Xi trying to hold on to power past the norms that were established after the Mao era. I think Chinese officials, after they saw what happened with Mao, after they saw the turmoil that he led China into, they decided a leader cannot hold on to power for that long. But Xi, as you know, Andrea, has held on to power for a third term, which is unprecedented in the contemporary era. And my father, when he was talking to me last year, he said, this is a big problem. He said that Mao had a certain optimistic vision for China at first, but then, of course, he led China into the Great Famine of the late 50s and into the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s and 70s, which completely devastated China and its economy. And he sees the same risk taking place now under Xi because Xi is holding on to power too long.
And do you see, with the shakeup in the military and other, huge changes within his structure, his administrative structure, particularly in the military, do you see any resistance at all to him, or is it absolute power?
When I speak with some of my contacts in China, there are definitely voices in China that are uneasy with the direction Xi is taking China. These are people who are intellectuals, who are business people. They benefited from the more liberal economic policies of China and the full-throated engagement with America and some other Western nations during that era that was begun by Deng Xiaoping after Mao, and that was carried on by Song Deng's successors. Of course, China always sees itself as a counterbalance to a certain degree to American power, but it can go through periods of opening in which it decides to engage more fully with the West. And under Xi, that era has closed or is closing, and Xi has decided to take on a much more adversarial position towards America.
Well, Edward Wang, I mean, first of all, it is absolutely beautifully written. It's poetic, and your perspective is unique. Thank you so much, Ed. It's great to have you and to begin dipping into the book. It's really an incredible history of China told through the eyes of one family. Edward Wang, thank you.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.